Brooklyn Independent Television.
To view one of his paintings is to travel to another world, the Tasmanian landscape, a mystical maze of structured pathways through the temperate rainforest with scattered animal bones, ancient faces, and intense dry heat. With rich colors, pattern, and repetition, it's time to find out who is Garry Nichols.
I'm Garry Nichols. You're in my studio in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. It's in an old Civil War era building. I've been in the studio space for about 2.5 years. Moving from Tasmania to Sydney, Australia, at first was a scary enterprise. I stayed in Sydney to complete art school. I then left Sydney on a 2-year travelling arts scholarship and went straight to London. From there, I was awarded a scholarship to come to study in New York, and that was the best move I ever made. The main impact New York has had on my paintings is to address my needs to reflect on my childhood. There was a conscious choice to choose certain colours to reflect the landscape of my childhood. Hot colours, warm ochres, hot greens, yellows, reds, blacks, whites were, deliberate. The oil paint I used was a perfect way to get at the richness of the colour I needed. I want to go to this particular green, this cooler green, warmer green, cobalt blue, which is straight out of the tube, really, but every other colour is mixed with something. I took out oils, cobalt green. I always add a little white to that just to give myself a more opaque, closer to this particular colour. So I want to bring a little earth green into it. It's not going to have enough warmth to it. I know it's a cool colour, but I need a little bit of warmth to it. And what I'll do with this board is lay out some of the colour onto this white surface so that I know that I'm coming close to that particular colour. I dropped out of high school, landed a job as an apprentice draftsman in a factory. I moved from silk and textile factory to a job as a fashion illustrator. I knew the figure. I'd been working with it 15 years, and that was enough for that period. For say 10 years, completely took out the figure from my paintings and focused on the beginnings of my landscape, and that was good. The Ross Bridge is a convict-built bridge in the middle of Tasmania. It wasn't until 3 trips I made back to Tasmania from New York in the 1990s that I encountered my Aunt Hazel. She took me into her library and showed me an original set of photographs that her husband Norman Laird had taken of the Ross Bridge and all the carvings that were on the surface of the bridge. I immediately started to use them, the carved heads, the plant forms, the Celtic influence in the carvings, and the history of the artist who made them. It's subdued, it's grey, it's dark brown, it's light blue in places. I wanted a quieter palette. I don't use a lot of white directly without unmixed, but I do use quite a lot of the unbleached titanium, and I'll allow it to in certain areas to combine with the colours the other existing colours. To go back into the painting, I'll look for an area that has unresolved parts. And playing with colour here, or playing with colour on my palette, and that's almost as important as actually painting on the canvas. When I was in art school in Sydney, I was studying painting alongside a young Aboriginal man called Jeff Samuels. He introduced me to a community of Aboriginal people from Mornington Island. He introduced me to a man called Philip Jack. Philip agreed to pose for me for a portrait I did of him. He was still, quiet, respectful, and as I was of him. I wanted to have a keyhole feeling, be it framed by plant forms on the left and right, as you might look through a keyhole at a landscape. And the suggestion of still life, grapes and other fruits is inspired by my father's attempts to grow fruit in Tasmania in his backyard. I celebrate those attempts in that painting. I walked into the Yes Gallery and immediately met Leslie, the owner of the gallery. She invited herself to my studio. A week later, she offered me a show within 6 weeks, which is fast, and I accepted it. I would describe my paintings and objects and drawings as beautiful, a symbolic landscape, dreamlike. Some people think it's surreal. I sometimes see paintings that are out in the world that I've made that I would like to get back. I want them to be more beautiful in a world that's losing a lot of its beauty. I have a need to paint, that's a given. It connects to parts of me I haven't even discovered yet.
Become a fan on Facebook, like Brooklyn Independent Television.